In this next video, I'm going to be showing you a few more specific adjustment tools and how we can lighten or darken certain regions of our image by hand. Okay. Now, starting off in Photoshop, we're going to come down on the left-hand side and we're going to look for this one here. Okay. Now, it might look like a bit like a lollipop, but if we right-click on it, we've got Dodge, Burn, and Sponge. Okay. Now, none of them really tell us naturally what they do, because all three of these terms refer back to the old days of film photography and darkroom techniques, where you would manually, by using some of these methods, adjust like a film photo by hand. Okay, now now we can experiment to see what they will do. Now, as before, whenever we're making changes in Photoshop, it's always find how to experiment because we can use the history tool to go back and look at what we've done or to undo any changes. And we want to make small, subtle adjustments throughout. So starting with the dodge tool, this is going to lighten certain areas of our image. Okay. Now at the top here, we can change the size of our brush. So let's start with just something around 100 pixels. And you can see it's got a nice soft edge to it. If you want to, we can always change the shape of the brush, but we'll start with this to begin with. Now let's just say we maybe want to lighten up like the area of the river down here. Now let's bring the size of our brush down a little bit. Maybe about there. We can always zoom in with the magnifying glass if we need to. But if we click on it now, it's very, very slightly lightening our image. If we wanted to have a slightly more extreme effect, we can change the exposure slider on here and do it like that. But if we were to go off slightly, we can see it's affecting parts of the image that we don't want it to change. For a more dramatic effect, let's say we want to use like a hard round brush. Let's make it a bit smaller. And let's change the exposure all the way up to the top. So now we can effectively change the exposure on the whole image. Okay. So remember, small subtle changes with a soft round brush will be the most effective. Okay, for really small targeted adjustments. Now, as you can guess now, the burn tool does the opposite. The burn tool darkens it. Just for comparison, let's have a look in Photopea. So we're going to right click, come to our burn tool. In fact, let's say we want to darken these rocks at the front here in the foreground. So let's just zoom in a little bit so we can see them a bit clearer. Let's come out to our burn tool. Now at the moment, it's almost too focused. So let's soften our brush by reducing the hardness and make it a bit bigger as well. Let's go for something like about there. And we can always maybe just bring this down to, let's say, 40% just to try. There we go, that's a bit better. And as we do each step, we can see it's adding to our history tools. We can always come forward, go back, just as we want to. Again, let's just maybe bring that down just a little bit more. Just give a nice subtle effect on our rocks. There we go. Fantastic. Now the final tool we're going to look at, you'll see on here, is the sponge tool. Now you probably won't need this today, but we can have a look to see what it does anyway. Let's just start with the default settings along the top and do a little scribble. Now nothing's really happened that we can see. But when we undo it, we can see the changes happened. Let's move it to a more extreme on here. Now what the sponge tool does, it increases the saturation of the color. So imagine it's increasing the intensity of the color in that particular area. If we go for perhaps like a much bigger, harder brush, then we can start to see it a bit more, which isn't what we want. And again, we can do the opposite. We can change it to desaturate. To desaturate, where it takes the color out of it. Okay, so that's how you use the dodge and burn tool. Okay, so key reminders: small, subtle changes with your tool selection, and really focus on the area. And don't forget that if you make a mistake, you can come back to your history tool and just go back to the beginning again.